I have a lot to talk about with myself. Lots of different things that are of different flavors, and I'm just gonna talk, and then if I miss anything, I'll make another video after that. But last night I had some crazy stuff going on in my mind and brain, and I was having trouble falling asleep. And then if I don't fall asleep right away, at some point I have to pee. So I got up to pee one time. But then at some point, this crazy stuff was still going on in my brain and I couldn't sleep. And I felt like too tired to get up and pee. Though I wanted to, and I wanted to even get up and take some more sunflower lecithin or some more tryptophan. But I felt like I didn't want to get up. I just felt like, I just want to go to sleep, but I couldn't. And I don't know how long I was laying there. I was gonna put the sleep cycle app on and use it, but I didn't, because I was gonna wait until I had my sleep mask that I ordered that didn't arrive yesterday. So I didn't do that, but it might have been helpful because I would have seen how long I was laying there. So I might do that tonight. That would have been really helpful to see, actually. That was silly. Because I did fall asleep at some point and I don't even remember. But I don't know if I was laying there for half an hour or 2 hours or what. And just this stuff in my brain trying to resolve this whole oneness. Like, when I feel this oneness now and how it's all so interconnected and related, and we really relate based on the state of consciousness that one is in, and then it doesn't feel like they're separate individuals, and it's really disorienting. And then my brain goes back into the past and realizes it's always been like that, and then realizes we're not separate, we're not individuals, and it's just so bizarre, and I can't wrap my mind around it. It's impossible. So it feels like this oneness sickness. And so it's like, no, I want to go back to feeling like myself. I want to feel like a separate self, because I feel like it's not safe to feel like one, because then one merges with whatever is around one, and if it's not what one wants, then one ends up playing out things in that scenario indefinitely. I don't know how it works, I really don't. So it would have been cool to have that tracked, but I didn't track my sleep. But then this morning I felt kind of like depressed. And what happened last night too was I shared my story with a group of people, and I felt like really high. Not like manic, but I felt more magic and energetic, which could be my manic. That's maybe what it is. And so I shared my story for like an hour or so, like from the level that I wanted to. But then I realized after, it's like, wait, I sort of shared my whole thing. I talked about lithium orotate, I talked about everything I'm doing, not all the details, but I talked about how I want to find sanctuary and go through it by myself next time. And they asked, well, does your doctor know that you're taking natural lithium? And I said, no. And then they said, and I said I wasn't going to tell my family that I'm going to go through this crisis by myself in June and go to sanctuary for that. So then it's sort of like I told them more than I should have. I don't know if I told them more than I should have. I was trying to inspire hope for other possibilities, but I don't know. And I don't know if it was wrong, like it happened, but it feels like, did that deplete my energy when I'm sharing to people like that? Am I just giving food for thought, which just creates more images and chaos and everything? Should I keep to myself? Should I only share after or during? I'm blogging about it during a little bit. I don't know. I really don't. I don't get it at all. And so I came to the park to have a walk. You know, I got up this morning and I felt like awful. So I took 4 taurine when I've been taking 2. And I took, instead of 6 grams of glycine, which is one of my little scoops, I took 3 scoops, so probably 18 grams to sort of sedate the brain. And then I still took the rhodiola, which brings up the dopamine, and I took the tyrosine, which brings up the dopamine, and then I think skull cap acts on dopamine, and I took that too. So I still took the dopamine stuff to kind of boost that back up, and then I took the calming stuff. And then I sort of sat there and colored for a little while, just did something like meaningless and mindless. And then I started to feel okay. Like I started to feel not so one. It's weird how the oneness, when the brain changes and morphs from this perspective of being the separate self, acting alone, not alone, but like separately, it's almost safer, because when the brain's like, oh my gosh, it's one and it always has been, it feels like, oh my god, it's not safe to be like that, because then one is kind of like a ping pong ball and there's no control. But even if one's able to go back into the perspective of feeling separate and individual, it's still the same thing, but one feels a little bit safer, like there's a bit of a wall. It's very subtle, though it wasn't subtle in my brain when it was freaking out last night. It was, not good. And so, yeah, I don't know if I wasted the energy. I don't know if I shared too much. I don't know if it's telling me something about something. The other thing I did the other day was, when I was feeling good and getting lots done, I went and looked at a new car. I looked at a Chevy Volt. It's a gas electric. And started to do kind of a deal on it, because there's like a coupon and things to scrap your old car, and you get quite a discount on the price. And then they gave me a lease price, and then I'm like, okay. So then I put a deposit to go through with the credit app and all that, and then they call me and say the lease price is actually $112 more. And I'm thinking to myself, I knew they were going to do that. I said it to the guy. I said, I've been in so many deals with me and friends and things, family, where they get jacked at least $1,000 after whatever is kind of agreed to, in so many different ways. They have probably 1,000 strategies, more than that. So they did that. They said, oh, we had a discount in there for the previous deal and we forgot to take it out. It's like, as if. And so I was thinking, well, you know, it still could be good, and I was offered to have some help making the payments and stuff, but I don't know if the energy of consciousness has dropped today to have a reality check. Like, it's not good for me to agree to a monthly payment of $532 right now, because if people have agreed to help me to some extent, things can change so fast. And when I was 2019, I leased a car, and then at some point I had chronic fatigue and I couldn't pay for it anymore, and it was just stressful. And I feel like, okay, I'm going to do something where history will repeat itself. Even though if I do lease this car, since it's gas electric, it could end up costing me the same-ish, because there's less gas and things. But I just feel it's more like I don't want to enter into like a 4-year agreement. My car right now works just fine, and if it was to tell me that it was going to continue working for the next 2 years, I would continue to drive it. It's an old 1992 Toyota Corolla. I love driving it. It's really fun. The trunk leaks. It's raining right now. There's going to be water in my trunk. I can't put anything in there, or it just goes all wet and moldy. But like, it could continue to work for another 6 months. And I was thinking on my walk today that, you know, I'm hoping to go to California in October. And, you know, I'd probably drive the car, but I don't have to take a car. So if my car lasted me all summer and then died, and then I didn't have a car going to California, big deal. And then also, like, I'm on disability, and if I have this car and I go off disability and I go to California, if I come back and I have this car, maybe it's harder to get back on disability. And, you know, I really do need that, because my wellness is so inconsistent. So inconsistent. It's so And that's the other point, is that, you know, I might be able to enjoy this car for the next 2 months because I'm doing well, but then all of a sudden my brain tanks, I can't even drive, I can't even think, I can't even do anything, and it might just sit there for 3 months. So it's kind of, it could be potentially a waste of money. And so with my car now, I don't have a payment, so if it sits there, it's not a big deal. And also, after I go for a retreat in June, I don't even need a car in the summer if I stay somewhere near transit. I could just get a bus pass and go to the seawall and rollerblade. And also, you know, if I had this car, I'd end up having to drive all over trying to make some money to pay for some of it. Whereas if I don't, I can continue to work from home and work on the stuff that I'm working on, which doesn't really yield any money at this point, but it could potentially if I put energy into that as opposed to putting energy into a car that I'm going to have to run around trying to pay for. I don't know, it just seems like a bad idea. Whereas the other day it seemed like a good idea. And that's the thing, if that state of consciousness that was higher that I had on Monday, Tuesday, I could maintain it, I would be fine. But it's not necessarily going to be maintained, and I have to be real about that. And also, these next few months, I'm going to be seeing if I can maintain my consciousness using these supplements. So I need to, for me, keep going with life as it is, and then as stuff comes up, like last night, figure out how to better navigate things with the vitamins and take more meds if I need to. So for example, last night I learned I don't want to get my butt out of bed if I can't fall asleep. So now what I need to do is make sure I have water beside my bed with the extra supplements I might want to take in a really easy to grab in the dark way. I do have some extra melatonin, which I could have taken maybe, but that would have been a lot. And I do have a bottle of water. And I might actually have the knockout supplement pack, but I think I need like another type of knockout. Like, okay, the ones I took to go to sleep didn't knock me out, so here's the top up. Like 2 sunflower lecithin and an extra tryptophan in little baggies or something. So based on what happened last night, that's what I need to do. And also, when I do get this stress and I'm not able to sleep, it makes me feel like I have to pee more. And I remember last time when my brain was feeling like it was about to implode, and then it did, I was getting up to go pee like every 5 minutes because it felt like so much pressure on my bladder. And I had to go like this urgency. I don't know what that is. I had this subtle feeling just a little while ago that it had something to do with time, like one is traveling through time in a way, not really, in a different way, like the possibility of everyone operating at a higher consciousness isn't now. So if one goes into higher consciousness, one's consciousness is ahead of its time. So then when consciousness is coming back down the levels to lower itself to be more in alignment with the consensus of this whole area. It's kind of like traveling through time, kind of like Einstein's theory of relativity. How something, as it travels faster and faster and closer to the speed of light, time slows down. So, going at a higher level of consciousness, consciousness is traveling faster, closer to the speed of light, for example. So when it's coming back down, relatively speaking, time is dilating, it's expanding. So 5 minutes could really be like 2 hours. So then one has to pee every 5 minutes because it's really been 2 hours according to the body. I just kind of made that up now, and it makes quite a bit of sense, actually. The whole relativity thing applies to consciousness. So if one goes into sort of a higher state of consciousness, there's going to be this whole slowing down effect, which more is processed in a shorter period of clock time. So that could be why when we're in higher states and when we're in flow, we feel like time slows down. Like maybe we don't even have to get up and pee as often. But then when our consciousness slows down again, all of a sudden we have to pee like at a regular rate or whatever. Or if one was in that state for a prolonged period of time, the slowing down, one might all of a sudden, now you have to pee 5 times in half an hour because you were just in a different time zone in consciousness. And it kind of makes sense too in terms of the experiencing weird stuff in the brain and mind. It's almost like laying there awake, but like having the amount of dreams that you would have in a whole night, or like in many nights and many days. But in one night, and it keeps you awake because it's hard to sleep when that much material is being processed. I don't know if that's part of how it works, but it seems kind of logical, and then it makes it maybe a little bit easier to handle because one realizes it's relative. So consciousness is relative. So you can go into a higher state of consciousness, but that's not the overall resonance of the morphogenetic field. So it's very difficult for one to stay there in isolation and not have the relationship of others around being congruent with that. And I don't know if that's true, or that kind of puts like blame on others, and I don't see it that way, because then I feel like, wow, there are no others. But to come back down feels like, okay, again, there are others, because these beings feel like they are other. So I have to go on feeling like I'm other too, which is fine. It's actually quite nice. But it's not that different than the feeling of feeling the oneness in the higher state. It's more the change that is the hard part. The change from the higher state to the lower state, if that is indeed part of what's happening. And the other point about getting a new car, the way I'm beginning to understand this brain mutation thing, I don't even know if I'll be able to drive in a year or two, or if I'll want to. Even the Spire Stone and the app tell me that I'm tense 33% of the time while driving. Well, do I want to get a car that's going to make me feel like I want to drive more when it's going to be tensing me out? I don't know. Maybe that's not a good idea. And I live near people who have a car that I know, so if I need to go somewhere, perhaps I can borrow a car. Not indefinitely, not forever, but for the time being. Maybe I go to California in October and I don't ever want to come back. And then I have this car payment. And if I don't have the car payment, maybe I don't really need to be able to work, because I won't necessarily be able to work down there. Unless I have the process of getting a green card. Like, there's so many possibilities. I don't want to have something that might start to create these psychological games of, oh, now I got to do this or that because I have this car, or I have to do this or that because I got help with this car, or I don't know. I could just as easy get food delivered. I don't know. I don't think I need it. And maybe in a year, if I do need one, the technology will be better or something. I don't know. The change in consciousness brought me back down to earth. I went out to explore the possibility because there was a lot of discounts, especially trading in an old car to get an electric-ish car or an electric car. So yeah, it wasn't a bad thing to do. It was exploring a possibility, but when I talked to Peter Smith, he said it's an important question to ask. How long can I maintain this state? And I was in that state probably for a week or so, maybe more. There was a certain point when I felt like, okay, I think it was only a week, and then I dropped out of it, and I don't know if it was because I shared the story or if it was just time. You know, maybe I can only maintain that for a week before my brain has to rest. And if it goes into that stuff again tonight, that scary stuff, tomorrow I'll experiment with not taking any of the dopamine enhancers like rhodiola or tyrosine or skullcap. You know, I'll take some of those things to curb the mania. And the other thing I might try too, maybe not tomorrow, but you know, if it builds up again and I'm in this space that's good again for a week, when I start to peak, even though I don't feel like crazy euphoric or anything, I might try downing those branched chain amino acids to see what they do. Because I don't feel manic, but the manifestation is that I'm going to peak at a point where I can't continue to maintain that path. The whole exploration, the path of getting a car and stepping into having a payment of some kind. My brain drops out, and I think that's the universe trying to tell me, okay, that's a nice idea, but you're not quite ready. And when I think I already said this, but when I was in my 20s, I leased a car and then I had chronic fatigue, and it was just a disaster. So, yeah, and I might want to be mobile and wander, and I can easily take flights and things like that. And if I decide I want to be somewhere else in the world and then I have this car, well, the car is kind of like symbolic of anchoring me to this area. And based on the whole morphogenetic field thing, I don't know if I want to be in this area. Like, I feel like if I'm somewhere where the morphogenetic field is of a higher vibration, then that dying back doesn't really happen so much. And I don't know if that's true. That's something that I kind of want to test when I go to that kind of sanctuary area in June. So I can't remember if I talked about this, but the other thing I need to test is how to do that P test. There's a metabolic panel, and it costs about $1,000 to get it done. And I kind of wanted to do it last time when I was having to pee every 5 minutes, and like my brain was imploding, and I hadn't yet taken Seroquel, and I'd been off meds for all that time. And I wanted to do this pee in a vial and send it in and then pay $1,000 and go see my naturopath to see what it says, because it's like the metabolics of what's happening in stress. It might not give me any new information, but it might, since I'm sort of obsessed with exploring these physiological aspects of this energy. You know, and if there are physiological aspects, maybe they can be navigated with supplements and things like that. And that's what I'm already doing, so maybe I don't need to do that until I find out if this regime that I'm doing works. Because if I have a crisis in the summer and then I'm able to like pop myself out of it with what I've been taught to do and I'm teaching myself to do through Peter Smith, then maybe I don't care what is going on with this $1,000 test. But I at least want to read the instructions, because what happened was I was in the point I couldn't read instructions and follow them. Like I was like a second away from trying to harm myself, as if I could read a page of instructions and like pee in this vial and put it in the fridge and make sure this and that. Inspire says take a deep breath, and then freeze it and then mail it. I couldn't even drive. I couldn't do anything. So I have to have prior knowledge and understanding of how to do it. So I will study that. So with all these things, I have a lot to do that just is sitting at home and learning about this P test, learning about these supplements, staying kind of local, staying low, doing the relaxation training of the brain. And I did the relaxation audio last night, and the spire said I wasn't breathing calm. I don't know if it was because I was laying down and I had it hooked into my pants, so maybe it wasn't able to test my breath as well in that position. So I'm going to try doing the relaxation audio in the position I did last time, which was sitting up in a beanbag chair with the Muse headband on. But maybe it's just that I'm not able to breathe as calm lately because I was sort of at the end of this week cycle of getting more, you know, dopamine high. So I want to test that out. And yeah, I'm testing a lot of different things out. And there's a lot more that I want to talk about, but kind of wanted to talk myself back down to earth about this whole paying monthly for a car thing. Not a good idea. My car works. It could continue to work for another 6 months. Even if it dies and then I can't get some kind of electric vehicle credit, oh well, maybe I don't need a car at all. I think I should design my life right now for the lowest common denominator, the lowest mental state that I have, and the lowest morphogenetic field that I'm surrounded by. And I'm not trying to blame my circumstances or my situation. It's just a fact. California, where I go, has a completely different energy. And quiet places and like spiritual places have a different energy. And the brain feels safer to be one with people. My brain doesn't feel safe to be one. So it's putting up these walls. And when the walls are coming down, it starts to put them back up, and it's a scary process in consciousness. So, yeah, I think I've decided not to do the car thing. Even if it could potentially be saving money somehow. It's okay. I don't really need anything. I don't need anything. And when I wrote down those quotes, like, don't push, let it come to you, everything happens around you. Don't move, like, yeah,